alaikum. You're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the 32nd conference on CPEC. Obviously it's a huge project, as we all know. The very interesting dynamics about it and what exactly it's going to have, when we talk about the impact of CPEC in terms of economy, what exactly it's going to do and how long will it take, and when you talk about the translation of CPEC, what exactly is that supposed to mean? Everybody talks about CPEC in terms of having a railway link or a road link or a connectivity kind of a feature, but the point is that it's not only that. That is just a minor portion of it. I was watching an ad, a very interesting one. Somebody said, and rather compared, that Gawadar is going to be developed exactly on the same lines the way the Chinese developed Shanghai or the UAE developed Dubai. So what sort of challenges are we going to face in that regard? Obviously, nobody opposed Dubai or nobody opposed Shanghai at that time. But interestingly, when we talk about CPEC, which is going to definitely benefit almost 2.5 billion people, you talk about the African nations or the Middle Eastern side, or you talk about the Central Asia, or you talk about China or Pakistan for that matter, a lot of people will benefit. Eventually, the standard and the lifestyle is going to change in this region. But there are a lot of hindrances, there are a lot of issues, a lot of challenges. We'll be talking about that in detail in our today's program. On my right is Abdullah Yousaf, needs an introduction, former head of FBI, so thank you very much. And we also have with us Dr. Aqab, a known analyst, thank you very much, sir. And we have with us Piracha Saab, again needs no introduction, known anchor, television personality as well as a senior journalist. So thank you very much, Shaukat Piracha, for taking out the time and being a part of the show. So first of all, Abdullah Yousaf, when we talk about CPEC, obviously the first thing which comes in my mind is like a road, rather much better roads, starting from top all the way to Gawadar, and a lot of industrial zones on the left and the right, and people getting jobs, and obviously a lot is going to improve in that. But sir, having said that, is this the only way to look at CPEC, or there is a different dimension, sir?
Well, actually, let me just clarify, because as far as the CPEC project as a whole is concerned, it's almost $46 billion as a total value. And out of that, almost $34 billion is for the energy power sector, right? And the rest, 12 billion or so, is for the infrastructure, which is roads and railways and,
And the upgradation of the existing road.
And of course, the upgradation. And with that, you go on to those roads, you are also going to have those economic zones, special economic zones or industrial zones on the sidelines. Now, you see, if we look at the whole issue or the whole project, I think definitely it is one of those exceptional ones, historically speaking, for the nation, for the country. Of course, it will have a positive contribution for the economy, for the country. But then, at the same time, it is actually going to also benefit the other side of the other country, which is China primarily. And of course, it can also work as a, linkage for the region also. When we look at what are the countries joining us on the north, basically.
The Central Asian states and
yes. So all those countries are also likely to be benefiting. And this is also then likely to create, from the countries, our country's point of view, some expansion in your growth, your GDP. The size of the economy grows, and this type of growth becomes or brings in the increase in the economy, and that of course then means that you are going to generate some extra employment, and of course it should also increase our GDP growth rate and so on.
So when we present the idea of CPEC, everything seems to be very hunky-dory, right? So, talking about the economic zones, I just want your comment on this, because so many governments, they decided to give certain economic zones to various countries, also to Singapore, to Japan, to China, and also to develop our own industry, and that the electricity will be, there were certain sort of facilities which were provided. subsidized rates were given on various.
So those are free trade agreements.
No, sir. FTA is different. I'm talking about within Pakistan. But nothing happened on that front, sir. To be very honest, I mean, we couldn't capitalize. I mean, sir, we couldn't even capitalize on GPS Plus when you talk about GSP Plus when we had a contract with European countries of $2.2 billion. We couldn't do much. So practically, the idea is great, but do you believe that there is some hindrance, some problem at the working level, sir? Is that the real issue?
Actually, that is our basic issue in every field, I would say. That is our...
is it the attitude?
It's a governance problem,
okay,
primarily. And that, of course, certainly is something which we will have to focus on and try to actually ensure that we are going to also deliver on our side. Because it's not going to be a one-sided story. They are, the Chinese are going to be the investors. But then we are supposed to provide that support. Infrastructure support is going to be from our side also.
All right.
And then we have to facilitate that entire effort of the investor. And for that, we have to provide also the security side. We have to then...
everything which is associated with it.
Everything which is associated. And that always is a requirement from any investor's point of view, which we have to actually understand and try to now move forward, because there are a lot of hindrances and handicaps. And that also then affects your investors' decision making.
You believe that the government is addressing those issues wisely and in appropriate fashion?
Actually, they are now wanting to do so, and I hope, God willing, that there should be some outcomes. It's going to be a challenge. It's not going to be that simple and straightforward.
Exactly.
It definitely will be a challenge, but then we have to take the challenge because it's absolutely necessary.
All right. Moving on. Dr. Pros and cons, obviously, when you evaluate or whenever there's a project of this size, of this magnitude, obviously, which we call is going to be a game changer. And it is going to be a game changer, provided if it's done the right way. Whatever is on the paper, if it's implemented the right way, yes, sir, we'll see that kind of growth. But what sort of hindrances do you feel we will face, or are we facing at the moment, sir?
You've got to understand that things are coming about now. The planning is there, Gawadar has been made, the port's been made, the airport is, everything's on the ground, things are starting to work, meaning people are starting to construct things according to a particular plan. And this is the same with the routes coming down, the roads and motorways. And it's going to be a slow development because it's going to take a fair few years.
All right.
So nothing's going to just erupt and just immediately change. There's going to be a transition between what we are now and what we can be. But this also...
And this is going to take decades, right?
Well, it could take around 2 decades before we see any real success in it, I think.
Okay.
Because once it starts, the work is done on the ground in the next 10 years or so, and then you'll see a gradual change, there's no doubt, when the energy aspects turn around and we don't have an energy shortfall and we're actually seeing some return in that, and those promises are being fulfilled, as they are beginning to, that's when we're going to start seeing things. But when you talk about problems, let me tell you the truth. I find that our culture cannot execute policies and execute plans and cannot construct the way the Chinese want to construct things.
Define that part of culture.
Fact of the matter is...
culture is that the attitude which we have?
The attitude is that everybody wants a little piece of the game, but nobody wants to do anything about it. Yeah? And so the Chinese want to come, and to fix it, they are of a strategic necessity, and CPEC is part of a larger picture of One Belt, One Road, which is going to expand everywhere in Central Asia to Europe. The whole Eurasian continent, Asia, Europe, Africa, the Middle East, will be linked in. That's the whole idea. This is one pivot point. This is a very important point because this is the model. This is what you're going to, if you have a success here.
So I totally agree with you. This is going to be a great model. But I'm just going to add another thing here. Yeah. If you remember, Yousaf was the Prime Minister, and I'm talking about the Pakistan People's Party's government. There was this idea, rather, the train went via Iran all the way to Turkey. And I think it just went once, and that's it. What have we done on that front? So, I mean, it's brilliant. You're talking about the entire European region and access to that. Nothing happened on that right after that.
But who's taking the leadership in this now? It is the second largest economic power in the world. It's got clout. It's got vision. And the truth is, the world needs it. The world wants it. They want economic benefit. We are realizing war is not an answer to anything. Conflict is not an answer. It's a destructive force. It got us this far. That's the end. We need to move on beyond it now. Economic means, economic density, fulfilling your country's needs, providing services. Everybody demands that now, and people are aware of it. And that's what we're trying to fulfill. And this is going to make everything interconnected. Interconnectivity makes the world become one. There may be one or two powers that are not in agreement with this, especially in Asia, where they can be sidelined. And they have to come into it eventually because they're going to lose out. And you know who that is. The fact of the matter is, this is the big game now. You talked about the great game in the 19th century with the British and the Russians, etc. Afghanistan was in the middle of it. This is a much bigger game than that. That was a contest of power between opposing forces. This is a unification of the world. As I see it, the long-term vision is a unification of the world. We need to unify it even further through interconnectivity, mixing of people, mixing of goods, trading in a way that we've never traded before. This is what's going to bring, and Pakistan is the fulcrum point right now because this is the model. This is the first one. This is a success.
That's a very optimistic
going to lead to it.
But Piracha Sahab, I mean, you've done so many shows on that. You've been extensively writing about that as well. What sort of challenges do you see, sir? We do understand this is going to be a game changer, and you know, I've been reading about it. There are certain sentences which are always there whenever any politician is talking about them. But the real issues, I'm talking about the real challenges, sir.
You know, 2-3 aspects the worthy guests, they have elaborated very well. For example, Dr. Saab has talked about leadership, that Chinese, this is the Xi Jinping, president of Chinese vision that One Belt, One Road is the concept, and they are spearheading it. Secondly, when you talk of challenges, there is a misconception in Pakistan in terms of domestic challenges that the smaller provinces or some opposition political parties, they are against this project. Nobody is against this project. Everyone is showing ownership and asking for more share. Let's be very clear about that. If the government of KPK or the political parties in Balochistan, if they are saying that give us more share and we do not want the present structure of the shares among the provinces, it's by no means an opposition to the project.
All right.
They want ownership, they want more industry to be built, more zones to be constructed, so that there could be, as you were talking, more and more employment generation. Starting with $46 billion or so, now the actual 54. Investment is gone to 54. So it's ending. Secondly, it's not for Pakistan, and it's not only for Pakistan. Look at the tremendous interest that the powers in our region and beyond there. For example, Johnson was here. I'm talking of British Foreign Secretary. Yes. What did he say about this project? He said we also want to be a part of it. Look at the interest generated in Central Asia and beyond. Yeah. Central Asian, you know, Turkmen president was here, Uzbek leadership was here, Tajikistan president was here, Imam Ali Rahman, and they are now asking Pakistan that please do something for us that we can be connected to this corridor of prosperity, you know. There was a problem. Now I'm coming to the regional problem. The problem, the challenge you are talking of, Afghanistan used to be a big challenge for our.
Still is a challenge, and I guess it will remain a challenge.
Let me complete. It's not a challenge. It's no more a challenge now. What we have done in literal terms, we have bypassed Afghanistan. We've been to Kashgar, and from Kashgar we are connecting to Central Asia. Once you are in Tajikistan, you are connected to entire Central Asia up to Moscow.
Correct.
Because their infrastructure, their connectivity is tremendous one. It was 5 years back that 25 truck convoy, it started from Belgium and reached up to Central Asia through Terrasik route. So Terrasik route is open last 5 years. There is a heavy transport over there. And it's functional
24/7 and throughout the seasons, even in winters.
It's a trim. Go to the Google.
We closed down this
go to the Google.
Karakram highway for 4 months in winters.
you know, with the expansion project, and construction of further projects on CPEC,
All right.
I mean, you never know, one day there is a fast train, for example, there is a train service, as they are trying it. Some 30 years back, nobody thought that Gilgit and Islamabad will be connected round the year, but now look at the traffic, you know, look at the expansion of the roads. So it's not only for Pakistan and not only in Pakistan. Whenever this project is completed, this will change the whole region. Afghanistan, I am telling you, it used to be a challenge, but it's bypassed now. To Kashgar and Kashgar to Central Asia, India tried to be a challenge. They went to China, they went to other parts of the world, they took up personally at the level of foreign minister and prime minister, and they spoke to Chinese leadership that what are you doing in the garb of CPEC, but Chinese leadership stood firm with its friendship with Pakistan.
They have a very clear
and now, you know, when we say challenges are there, we also see that the first convoy of so many big trawlers and first, you know,
Chinese trucks.
That's what I'm saying, you know, that has already been departed from Gawadar. So Gawadar is, and today especially, since you are holding this show today, look at, you know, the commitment from Chinese and commitment from our leadership, that Prime Minister was supposed to be there, due to bad weather Prime Minister could not flew, but military leadership was there. The ownership taken by General Rahil Sharif and now General Qamar Bajwa and others, you know, Chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee was also there. This is the commitment by the Pakistani leadership, both military and political. When I say political leadership, it's not only the ruling party. President Zardari used to visit every 3 months China in different projects.
The only president who's been to China so many times.
So many times. So entire political leadership in Pakistan, backed fully by the military leadership, this project will see the light
and
of the day.
supported by all the political parties. That is the best part. But sir, now since this idea was floated much earlier, and everybody used to talk about that, you know, Chinese will develop their western side, and eventually this is the way forward, because when you look at that side, China is also facing a lot of problem when you talk about the issues in the South China Sea, or for instance, I mean, there was a very interesting story in CNN about that one China policy of the USA. How do you see that aspect, sir? Trump, Mr. Trump being the president for the next 4 years, the Chinese leadership, they have a certain design. Pakistan is coming into this entire, I would say, game as a real stakeholder. The growing relationship between the Indians and the Americans. So it seems this could be another indirect battleground, sir, economic battleground for all these countries. Do you look at it that way?
Well, actually, if we overall see the global situation, definitely it has to go through a change.
Is it going through already, sir?
It has to go through going forward. Because, you know, what you have seen, if you look at the whole world situation, the western side, that is America, Europe, UK, etc., they've all done pretty well, and they've grown and they've achieved those type
first
of
countries.
Peak levels.
Correct.
Right? But then you come onto this side, the Far Eastern, Middle Eastern, and, you know, this part of the world, they have yet to grow a lot, and there is definitely a huge potential, and there is a huge gap at the moment. So China, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, etc. Now all these countries are having that potential, and now the time, I feel, is for these countries also to come up. And when these other developed countries, when they are now looking at their own side of the situation, they are obviously getting a bit worked up, I would say.
Yeah.
And they are trying to see how they can, manipulate a bit to try and avoid this type of situation actually taking place, and see whatever they can do to facilitate themselves. But that all, in my view again, is not going to be practically very easy for them now. And it has to happen as far as this change is concerned, because this is now we are looking at next 20 to 50 years going forward. How do we see this whole environment of the world now actually changing or bringing about the changes, etc. So for that, America and Trump particularly now is very, very concerned, I think, at the moment, and definitely he is wanting to look at this China situation and things like that. But I hope and inshallah I think this should not really become a hindrance from their side, despite whatever they may be trying to do or thinking to do as it stands today.
You think that could be one of the area of
They
concern?
will definitely be wanting to do something because of the environment and the situation looking ahead what it is likely to happen.
All right. Do you agree with that, sir? This is how he's looking at
Well,
it.
I do see Trump as a reactionary, really. He's an economic reactionary. He may be a businessman, which inherited most of that. And today we heard that he put an old tycoon, head of Exxon, as his foreign secretary. Without any government experience.
Yes.
And it's baffling because the oil industry is going down.
You talk about the Treasury Secretary, you
Yeah.
talk about...
etc.
I mean, eventually he's going to have a very interesting cabinet, I
And
would
his
say.
anti-corporate lead is really not working because he's putting all the corporate lead in his cabinet, which is a contradiction in terms. But that aside, I think it's primarily because he wants to reinvigorate his own economy. And he doesn't want his economy, the United States, and that economy to go down relative to China. They're both rising, but it's a matter of rate of rise and relative rate of rise, where China will come up. And in that respect, strategically speaking, if one country supersedes another economically, it's going to have to protect its resources. And that's what America sees China doing, protecting its resources. But they failed to understand is that one of the most important aspects is that everybody wants to,
American
as we've
government
talked
looking
about,
at China from a very different angle, from a very different
it always has.
Do they look at China as a threat?
It always has for a long time, because it's oncoming. I teach power transition theories, for example, in global strategic power policies, for example, one of the courses I teach up to PhD level and MPhil level. And in that, I talk about power transition theories and what it requires. And these theories are actually defined primarily by the West through the realist paradigm, where a particular country may acquire a certain amount of power, for example, around as a challenger state to the superpower, around 80% of the same equivalent power, and as a result becomes a challenger or is deemed a challenger by the superpower. And as a result, the policies start changing to more of containment, and a reactionary policy process starts. In other words, you see another as a threat rather than as a partner working towards unification of a world, etc., which is the direction we should be going. Instead of that, you see the short-term vision because you feel under threat, and as a result, you react to immediate threats, and that puts your whole vision out of touch with what you want to do in the long term. As a species, as a human species, I'm looking at the bigger picture here. I find that this project, this OBO, One Belt, One Road, and Maritime Silk Road, is the beginning of something very great. And very beautiful for human species if we're willing to last more than 1,000 years. And I find that anybody in the United States who has a certain amount of vision will have to come on board and not be reactionary. They're just going to delay the inevitable. Now, you see that as an optimist, but I'm quite a realist. I realize there are many challenges and there are other nations who don't like the power balance changing.
The potential has always been there. Obviously, Pakistan has been there. Even
Look, we're going to be the fulcrum of this.
Was there. But Piracha, very interesting. I won't take the name, but I'm talking about year 2001 and 2. The deputy chairman, I interviewed him, the deputy chairman of the Planning Commission of Pakistan, and they had this huge document prepared, and everybody was very happy that something is going to happen. So I remember...
When you have given the year, everyone got the name, okay? So, please go ahead.
So I asked him that, well, sir, according to this book, it seems that, this is going to be great for Pakistan. By the way, it was Vision 2020. So I said, sir, well, just let me imagine if I open my eyes and I'm here 2020, What kind of a country should I expect? Is it somewhat like Malaysia?
No.
So this is the end of 2016. 3 more years, and we're not even 1% close to Malaysia.
2001 happened, though, didn't 9/11 happen? Everything changed upside down. So, but things can change, and people can put spanners in the work because they're looking at relative gains. They're not looking at absolute gains. This is an absolute picture. We're looking at something
but
gaining for the rest of the world.
But at least you should be aligned. That is what it's important.
But this is what's happening, you see. It's not that easy to change this because the momentum is growing. More countries are interested. More parties want to share in this. More parties want to grow. They're looking at their own economies and they want a piece of the pie, and it's mutually. It's not a zero sum. It's not where one wins and the other loses. This is where we can all win, and that's the message. It's a change.
The bigger the pie is, the better the share is.
It's a narrative that we need to change, and that's a mindset we need to change.
Your take on that, sir?
You know, absolutely. There is a rough calculation. Abdullah Yousaf Saab is far more, aware of these statistics, that for every $100 million investment, additional 14,000 jobs are created.
Correct.
And just multiply $54 billion in terms of job creation opportunities. Who will be benefiting? Pakistani youth, Pakistani labor, Pakistani people. Imagine $54 billion recycling in Pakistan.
Direct multipliers.
Direct benefits. Who will be taking the benefits? Pakistani people, This is one thing. The other, in the bigger thing, as you were talking,
$54 billion may not, it's a huge sum, may not be a great sum for a country like China for that matter. But for Pakistan, when you compare that amount with the total size of GDP, that's a big chunk.
Your total earning for the last year, total exports were around $19 billion.
Yes, sir. We missed the targets. Yes.
We should see in our own size, according to our own scenario. Don't go to China that they have $400, $500 billion surplus money and they can spend anywhere in the world. If they are spending, for example, $50 billion for Pakistan, whose annual export is not up even $20 billion, so it's a huge double or triple of your own annual exports. The size of Pakistan earning $20 billion in exports, and Chinese are spending, for example, $50 billion. So calculate in that terms, So it's a huge project. Challenges are there. You are very right. If you compare to 2001 and 2 and compare today, things are different. People tend to paint a negative picture, but there are many positive things. For example, your democracy is proceeding forward. This is the third consecutive National Assembly that is going to somehow complete its term.
Yes,
democracy is moving forward. There is respect.
Transition is taking place.
Transition is taking place in Pakistan. Then respect of your institutions in a way is increasing, that no institution is intervening into others paradigm or others domain. There is lot of trouble in Pakistan, it seems, but there is also stability in Pakistan. Every day some people used to say that PPP government is going to collapse tonight or tomorrow, but somehow 5 years passed.
5 years plus.
Okay, this government, when we say that political stability is necessary for your economic prosperity, it's interlinked. So political stability somehow is holding its ground, Pakistan is on the path of stability, means there must be economic activity on the other side, and it's not only both of them, they were right. It's a win-win scenario for everyone. It's not only in the interest of Pakistan and not only in the sole interest of China. Pakistan is going to benefit, and those who export to China.
But Piracha Saab, why do the Indians have a problem? Why do they oppose CPEC if it's a win-win situation? Is it because of the problems which we have, or is it the issue, or they don't want us to grow?
There could be multiple reasons. An Indian sitting here could elaborate it better, but given the relationship between India and Pakistan, obviously anything in the larger positive interest of Pakistan could have some problem was there. Their argument is that since it's passing through a disputed territory, that's why they get an additional argument on this issue. You remember when World Bank was willing to finance this Dasu dam, you know,
project,
Basha, Dyamar Basha
Dyamar
dam.
Basha.
They came up with this argument that since it's a disputed territory, but these arguments could have been set aside if there had been a good, you know, relationship between India and Pakistan. Look at the bilateral trade between China and India. It is
80 billion plus.
more than 80 billion.
Yes.
So Indians could also benefit from Gawadar port. If they are importing from Shanghai till Mumbai, look at the distance.
Yeah.
And look at the distance between
From
Gawadar and
it
Mumbai.
suits Mumbai
It's
actually.
so close, in fact. How many days these trucks got? Less than a week. These trucks originating from Kashgar
All the way down to
all the way Gawadar,
to
it was less than a week. And if a ship, you know, departs from, for example, Shanghai, could have
from the Malacca Islands all the way down.
could be 15-20 days.
2 weeks.
More than 2 weeks, you know. It is around, you know, 8,000 miles or 7,000 miles distance.
That's correct,
And
sir.
this is only 2,000 mile distance, you know. So distances, they are shrinking. Opportunities are
increasing.
widening, you know. Indians could have thought it in a patient manner, and they should have thought it the economic prosperity that could accrue from this project. But since the relationship is at a pattern at this hour, that they are opposing this project. But one day I believe, if for Delhi, for northern India, you know, they could also take advantage of Gawadar or Karachi port. From Mumbai, it takes more time than it could take from Karachi or Gawadar to Delhi or
It's
to
just like
northern
because
India.
we do not have many direct flights, so you go to Dubai first
Yeah,
and then you go to.
exactly,
It's just like going to Peshawar
exactly,
first and then from
exactly.
Peshawar going to Lahore.
Exactly.
So I think that. So there was a very interesting story and Dawn, and it was a statement by the former spokesperson of the Foreign Office, Ma'am Tasneem Aslam, that India is developing nuclear submarines. So obviously, you're talking about this entire area. You're talking about the Arabian Sea as well as the Indian Ocean. And then people talk about the presence of Russians in the region as well because they have shown interest. And for sure, Chinese, obviously, they'll be looking after their interest as well. So a region where you're talking about 4 major powers, that's Russia, China, India, and Pakistan, and all of them, interestingly, are nuclear powers as well. Can that be a potential threat for this region, sir?
Well, I certainly hope not. In everybody's interest, I would say. Because unfortunately, you know, this type of environment that we are seeing today globally, where we are going for war and things like that in different areas for different reasons, I don't see what is the benefit that we get as a result of it for any country. You see, now take the case of America. They are behind a lot of these problems that we have in various countries. If you look at their overall situation, I would like to ask them that all this time that you have been investing so much in these areas, what have you actually gained? What have you actually got out of it? I can't understand, to be honest.
Sir, the philosophy of a unipolar world, having an absolute control in air, on the sea, on the ground, and even now, the 4th important factor, Dr. Saab is going to agree, is about even the cyberspace. That is another space now.
Yeah.
So that's what they want, sir.
Now, are you actually going to be successful in doing so? Is that going to be a realistic move? Because that is not going to be practical.
But sir,
because people have to.
That is a very important point, sir. When you look at the global politics, look at the American presence, sir. Starting from Far East, Japan, from Germany to Scandinavia, Middle East, Diego Garcia, you name it, and they're there, sir. So obviously they have something in their mind.
No, that's what I'm asking.
Looking after the trade routes, looking after the, not looking after, but keeping an eye on the, even having issues with the Chinese in the southern China Sea.
Well, that's what I'm asking now. That's what I'm wanting to know. That since the 45, which was the Second World War, now we had created this United Nations Forum. And the idea or the concept basically was that we would have an international or a global body who would be there to
look after the affairs of smaller countries,
sort out the problems, etc. And should be an independent body to be doing so.
Should have been an independent. It's the most politicized body, sir.
Exactly. Now the question is that all of us know this, that it is basically driven by America. Now, the question is, what is the actual outcome as a benefit, I would say, for that country which is trying to, push everything around as far as their interests are concerned? But interests are for everybody, and everybody is definitely going to get something out. While they are part of the world, they are supposed to be also living and doing something, or are they going to just finish off? Everybody else is going to just go home and have.
It doesn't happen that way, sir.
How can you actually expect that to be happening?
Yes.
So one has to try and come up.
You think times have changed now, sir? Because Russia, certainly when they I mean, I'll give you a couple of examples. I mean, what's the importance of Black Sea? It's a gate. It's an opening for the Russians. That is the reason they have interest in Syria. And Americans, I mean, they want to keep a check. So they have Turkey as a NATO member, but it has its own issues. We'll have more issues in the future as well. Remember, Dr. Saab? The point is, sir, but they have put their foot down. I mean, when you talk about the Crimea issue, or you talk about the Ukrainian issue, or you talk about the Syrian issue, so there is a challenge. There is a physical challenge for the Americans also. And they mean business, sir. And now there was a time they wanted to come and sort of use these warm waters. Now we're inviting them to use these waters within a span of, let's say, 30 years. So things definitely have changed. Sir,
excuse me, let me respond.
Please,
this
sir.
warm water.
Please.
When we compare inviting them or their quest to reach warm water, that has a negative connotation. That means they want to occupy, or they want some kind of invasion or annexation. But when we invite or they show interest in joining this project, it does not carry that negative connotation. You are right, times have changed, and this connotation should also be changed. Their joining CPEC or others joining CPEC is not a quest to occupy those lands as they invaded Soviet Union in 1980s. That was a different perspective. That's a different meaning. That has a different connotation. Joining CPEC is not that they are coming to occupy some piece of land here. No, it's a project, and if other countries can join this project, that's a shared prosperity.
Now, a couple of important factors. Now, the Foreign Minister, Mr. Jawad Zarif of Iran, and even the President, Mr. Rouhani, when he met the Prime Minister on the sidelines of the UN, they said that we want to be a part of it. And one very important statement, that Chabahar is not going to compete, rather it is going to complement. Can you explain how is it going to compete, or how is it going to complement?
Well, let's get one thing straight. It can never compete.
Why not, sir?
Gawadar will have direct access to China because we have a border with China. That's not the case with Iran. So direct access is what China requires, and that's what it's going to get. You apply other countries and you go through another border and another border, what you get is more complications, more issues, and you have to understand our relation with China is much deeper, much longer. In that respect, it simplifies things for China as well, and we're fully on board on top of that, and we're allies on top of that. So as a result of that, we're not going to provide any questions to Chinese leadership around the fundamentals of this project at all. But you look at how Chabahar was initiated and India, etc., it was a challenge. At the beginning, the foundations of this prospect of this port coming up in Iran are seen as a challenge initially anyway. So they've got to completely dispel that before anything happens. That means India's got to get out of the picture. Iran has to ensure that, for if they want to complement and not be a competition.
I'm really very hopeful about the future of Iran. I mean, look at
Iran is growing.
The biggest deal between the Americans and the Iranians were about the Boeing deal,
$80 billion.
But that was set in place.
I mean, that's how when you develop
things are changing
your industry.
again.
I'm just going to do a country which was under sanctions, sir, and Iran has a history. Persia has a history, and as a nation they survived the struggle, but they stood there. You talk about the filmmaking industry, I think they are really improved.
Let's not get off point.
No. What I'm saying is, sir, because we talk a lot, we talk a lot, but when it comes to the real implementation, there are a lot of problems.
There are.
Just do the comparison of two airlines. We are still living in the past. Once upon a time, PIA was so good. Well, sir, what about now? That is what the problem is. And when you look at the investments which the Iranians are making at the moment, sir, buying 40 ATRs or signing a deal with Airbus, I mean, worth billions and billions. I think it's over 11 to maybe 14 billion or something. And then Boeing again. So that means the whole world will come. You know, it's like Samsung. Everybody's invited.
Right now, that deal was done under
What
the
are we
Obama
doing?
administration. Remember that, yeah? Trump is against the deal. But although he can't change it, and with the Israeli lobby very strong amongst the Republicans. You know what happened when Netanyahu went and Obama was sidelined in a way. Yeah,
Yeah, when he addressed the parliament.
the Senate.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, the whole dynamics are going to change. We don't really know what's going to happen.
But he addressed the Republicans there, right?
So there's a lot of issues with that. So there's no guarantees. One of the reasons Boeing was chosen as opposed to Airbus with these deals is primarily to ensure that there's no more sanctions, because this deal is now going to provide over 100,000 jobs in America, and that's going to cause a lot of problems, isn't it, in the United States? So you can't go against Iran. This has been cleverly done before the Trump administration comes in. But you've got Iran, yes, lovely country, people are coming up. I wish them the best and I want them to join us, but not in opposition and not to support any of our enemies that are going to go in opposition to us. Yeah? So in that respect, they need to be very much assuring us they not do anything that will contravene that trust between us and Iran. And that's very important for this project, and as a result also with the Chinese, because they don't want them to be a spanner in the work, coming, then upset the matters. We want to join hands together and nothing else. And you were talking about cyber warfare. Yeah? Cyber warfare is the future. And it's happening right now, every single day. You can't see it. You can't see what's going on, and it'll get worse.
You do a show on Kashmir, and you just go after India, your program cannot be uploaded.
But what we're talking about, increasing global reliance on computers and technology, which means cyber warfare is going to be fundamentally and intrinsically, exponentially more of a threat.
And I'm sure the Indians, they will be having a lot of edge over that. But Piracha, last quick comment. India in the future seems to be a country which is going to be having a very strong industrial base after the American investment, after the return of the NRIs, as they say, after the economic reforms they are having. I mean, look at their foreign policy, things are really pretty okay for them. I mean, one has to be honest. But the kind of engagement they are having with Iran, for that matter, do you think that is going to be another challenge for Gawadar? Kind of investment they're making in Chabahar?
I do not think that
they also have a design.
I do not think that Iranian will forget the support Pakistan provided when there were clouds of war hovering over Iran on the issue, nuclear issue, you know.
Yes.
That during the second tenure of George Bush, the junior, almost, you know,
they were ready to go after Iran.
They were ready to go. Yeah. But Pakistan at all bilateral, regional or multilateral fora, Pakistan opposed any, you know, military solution to the Iranian nuclear program. Other countries in the region.
Sir, I'll just give you plus up two examples. One, the defense pact between the two countries, and the largest importer of oil from Iran.
I'm coming to that. Hold on, please. Okay, hold on. You know, hold on.
It's finishing. You got to come back.
Other countries in the region, once they voted against Iran, even at the level of United Nations, but Pakistan did not vote. You know, that's very much there. And Jawad Zarif Saab has been here twice. I met him. You know, the kind of feelings that I could, you know, infer were very positive about Pakistan. However, certain gestures of Iran, they are not liked by many in Pakistan. For example, joining hand with India and holding a trilateral summit of Afghanistan,
Iran and
India and Iran in Tehran was not liked by many people in Pakistan, you see. Secondly, when you talk of Gawadar and Chabahar has certain inherited disadvantages, certain inherent disadvantage. For example, Gawadar is in the open sea, anywhere the ships can. But look at the Chabahar inside a region, inside a sea where there is lot of trouble. So then the potential of war or potential of instability vis-a-vis Chabahar is far more than it could be in case of Gawadar. So Gawadar is a natural deep sea port. I'm not making a comparison. And then thirdly, you know, Iranian, they are very wise. They will not go for a competition. They are already, you know, talking of cooperation between Gawadar and Chobhar projects. When Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif and President Rouhani met in September in New York, they talked of a collaboration of these two ports. It's hardly less than 100, hardly 100 kilometer, less than 100 kilometer. And the major power that is, you know, now taken over Gawadar port for functioning of the port, that is Chinese. They are also having lot of interest in taking over Chobhar even, you know. So if Chobhar and Gawadar, they are working together in harmony, that will be good for Pakistan, good for Iran. Their, you know, competition in a negative framework is not going to help Chobhar, I tell you.
All right, sir. Piracha, thank you very much. Dr. Saab, thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you, sir. Abdullah, Yousaf. That's all we have for this hour. I'll see you tomorrow at 8. Till then, you take good care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz.